That movie nut here with a review for 1941, the epic war farce starring John Belushi, Dan Ackroyd, Treat Williams, Robert Stack, and Christopher Lee. The film, loosely inspired by real events, centers on the state of California, which, after the events of Pearl Harbor, is in a state of hysteria and fears the Japanese may attack at any minute. At the same time, a Japanese submarine with a German commander on board as well is also scouting out the area, planning their own attacks. And from there, misunderstandings, antics, and the bumblings of various military personnel and pilots ensue. The acting all around is fairly strong. Veterans Ackroyd, Ned Beatty, and the late great John Belushi all delivering fine performances as their respective characters. In particular, Belushi, who plays the over-the-top Wild Bill, who is, for all intents and purposes, the best character in the movie, gets some of the best lines, and you can really feel that Belushi had a lot of fun with this role, playing this over-the-top, goofy, overly determined pilot. And that's not to mention a number of great little names dropped here and there. For instance, Christopher Lee as the Nazi commander, who has his fair share of moments and does get into a lot of arguments with the Japanese that he's supposed to be assisting on their mission. Treat Williams, who plays a really jerkish, unkind corporal, and I must say he does it really well, and you just want to reach the screen and beat him and just give him a good one. Who at points reminded me of Carrie Elsway's character from Hot Shots. And of course there's Robert Stack as the incompetent General Stilwell. And you can even see some parallels with his later role in Airplane as the commander. That similar sort of elderly crossed with military incompetence, and it works as well here as it would later in Airplane. And even John Candy gets a small part in here as a private, though he doesn't get to do or say much. And there are various other great little character actors sprinkled throughout the movie who do various parts, such as two guys who go up on a Ferris wheel to patrol the festival and make sure that no one gets near it, a young couple who are in love, but of course the jerkish corporal played by Williams is also obsessed with the girl. But we'll get into those details later when we talk more about plot. However, to talk about something that really plays a big part in the movie is the production values. Given his success with Jaws and Close Encounters, Universal pretty much gave Spielberg carte blanche to do whatever he wanted, and it shows. There's a lot of money here on screen. There's a huge amount of scale. There's a lot of great big sets, wide streets, buildings, dance halls, airfields, tons of airplanes, and destructible property such as the Ferris wheel which rolls off the bridge. The costumes and the sets look pretty good. They look like actual clothing from the period, and there's some great model shots in here such as the Ferris wheel that I just brought up, and other stuff such as the Japanese submarine. And of course some great aerial sequences with Wild Bill where he's shooting up stuff in his plane. And it looked really good even 30 or 40 odd years later. And that's a testament to the quality of the production design here, the fact that it does look and feel like the 1940s. Not to mention, John Williams' score for the film perfectly complements the film's over-the-top bombastic nature, as it itself is big, it's loud, it's brassy, and it's very playful. And you can definitely tell that there's a great deal of humor in the score, and at points reminded me of the kind of score that Carl Starling would have done for the Looney Tunes cartoons. There's a lot of great little goofy moments in there. And now we come to the main thing, which as always is the script. Now, from the very beginning, where Spielberg lampoons his own opening from Jaws, it's very clear that the film is a comedy. But that's the biggest problem. The best way to describe the comedy here is Spielberg and the writers, Bob Gale and Robert Zemeckis, try to be Mel Brooks, and it doesn't quite work. What I mean by that is that they're employing a lot of tricks that Mel Brooks employed in his own spoofs. There's the over-the-top characters, the big set pieces, the mix of slapstick and wordplay, the kind of stuff you already saw in Young Frankenstein and Blazing Saddles. Now don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with employing a formula if it works, but they just don't know how to do it right here. The thing is, a lot of the jokes here fall a bit on the flat side. Not saying that there's never any laughs here, there are a couple here and there, but the comedy is all over the place here. It's very uneven. There are points which lean much more to the cartoonish aspects, such as Williams' music and some scenes where characters use vehicles to bash through walls or bash into things. And there are times where it leans more to just traditional comedy with the wordplay and some of the relationship quarrels and misunderstandings, especially in the love story. But it doesn't fit. They don't complement each other. And the movie doesn't seem to quite know if it's a full-on spoof of classic war films that Zemeckis, Gale, and Spielberg would have grown up with, or if it's just a war film that wants to be funny and make fun of this point of history. That's its biggest problem. It doesn't quite have an identity all of its own. The production values are very impressive, yeah, but it's almost as if the script doesn't know how to make the most of them. A major example of this identity problem comes with the love story. Because the film can't quite seem to settle on one thing, you're not really sure if you're supposed to laugh at this as just the way you would laugh at a romantic relationship in a straightforward comedy, or if you're supposed to be laughing at it as in, haha, this is inverting all those classic war movie romances for the sake of laughs. You're not quite sure because it doesn't ever fully decide, is it just comedy or is it spoof? Here you have a lot of actors known for great comedic abilities such as Belushi and Ackroyd and Candy and all these guys, and they try their best, but the material just isn't strong enough. It's uneven all over the place and it doesn't ever sell on quite one identity or tone, and as such they're never given the opportunity to fully shine the way we know they can. Not to mention the plot also, much like the comedy, is a bit uneven, and there are entire sections of the story where the Japanese and the German just completely disappear and you almost forget about them until the film brings them back up. For the most part, it's really focused on either the antics of the military or this goofy love story. And as such, they ultimately feel a bit on the superfluous side, to the point where, dare I say, you could take them out of the movie and you'd pretty much have the same movie just centered on the hysteria in California. They in and of themselves really only seem to have served the opening joke, and then after that they just hanged around for no real reason. The hysteria at that time was more than enough to carry the movie, and them being in there just feels like an afterthought and perhaps a cheap attempt to have a villain in there. That and most of the characters don't really have a personality out of being there to serve the jokes, and there isn't much in the way of character or plot development. Really, it's just antics, antics, and more antics. That's the best way to describe it. And so I must give Spielberg's 1941 a bronze star. It's not necessarily a bad movie. It has quite a few laughs in it, and it certainly has its own moments here and there, and the production values and the music alone are definitely worth a check out. But unless you're really a hardcore fan of Spielberg or just big scale farces, frankly, there are just so many other comedies, and of course Spielberg's own filmography, that are much more worth your time than this.